Welcome to the Friday Casebook. Thanks to Roger Casale, the founder of New Europeans, we're going to find out about the latest events in Europe and the world. Hi, Roger. What caught your eye this week?
Hi, Lena. Great to see you, and welcome to our viewers. There's been a conference in Madrid in October on called World Vision on transhumanism. I'm going to make a confession, Lena. When I was a little child, when I was about 2 years old, and my mother and father sat me at the breakfast table, I always insisted that the Hoover, the vacuum cleaner, was next to me at the table, because I believed that because the vacuum cleaner made a noise, that it was somehow human. And so I befriended the vacuum cleaner because it made a noise, more noise than me, even more noise than me. And really, one of my regrets in life is I should have stuck with this idea, because of course we do now have intelligent vacuum cleaners, smart vacuum cleaners, who not only you can speak to, but in some cases will actually reply and respond back. And we know about the growth of artificial intelligence. It's very, very quick. And we need to keep across this. We need to understand this. But what's happening with artificial intelligence and how quickly the world around us is changing. We know that Elon Musk is trying to create a robot that looks like a human being, which probably will be, in a few years' time, very difficult to know when you're speaking to this robot that looks like a human being, whether it's actually a human being or whether it's a robot pretending to be a human being, especially if you have to speak to this robot on Zoom. It's going to be hard to know. I'm not quite sure what the test would be. We used to talk about the Turing test, which was the philosopher Turing, who would say there's a way of asking questions so that we can discover whether it's a machine or a human being. But the transhumanists, Lena, they go one step further. They want to use technology and machines to enhance our cognitive ability, to enhance our brain power, to make us even smarter than we are already. Well, I'm all in favor of being more intelligent, but I'm not sure I want to use technology to make me more intelligent. I think I prefer to read books and talk to people, but they think that we can use technology to increase our cognitive powers, make us smarter. And they also think that they can use technology to extend our lifespan. Apparently Jeff Bezos, he's not only been busy putting his friends into space, he's also been spending a lot of money on trying to see if we can extend the human lifespan. And there are some ridiculous claims that were made at this, to me ridiculous, but I think our viewers should look into this, find out a bit more about it, saying that some people who are alive today could perhaps live for 1,000 years. I don't know that I want to live 1,000 years. Probably I do. I don't know if my people who know me well want me to live for 1,000 years. I think there is. You can have too much of a good thing, but it's, this is the world we live in today. So transhumanism, look into it. Scary stuff. What's it all about? Find out a little bit more about it. We'll put an article or two in the chat window on our New Europeans TV YouTube channel, and say the World Conference of Transhumanists took place 2 weeks ago. So they are on a roll, and it's probably one of the most important events that's happened, conferences that you don't know about, that has happened in the last month. So have a look at that, Transhumanism, the conference that took place in Madrid.
What else grabbed your attention this week?
We had a very sad event in the UK. The murder of the MP, Sir David Amess MP, was actually somebody I knew when I was in the British Parliament. Very different political views, but a very good example of how friendships could cross the political divide. He was one of the nicest people you could hope to meet. Somebody came to see him in the surgery, and they stabbed him several times. And I think we must remember he was at work. He was representing other people. And I think this is obviously a tragic event. But I think we really need to reflect about, first of all, how do we respond to this? And I think we need to take time to reflect about that, because I think putting barriers between MPs and the people they represent is not a good thing for our democracy. But this is, of course, the second murder in a few years. There was the terrible, tragic murder of Joe Cox 1 week before the Brexit election, and there have been other attacks on MPs in the meantime. And so it's a really very, very dangerous situation, I think, now for MPs. But I hope that in the response to what has happened will not be to somehow put even more barriers between MPs and their constituents. And I also hope for David and his family that they finally make Southend a city, because Southend, where he represented, every time he got up in the House of Parliament, he said it needs to have city status. And I believe that they are now going to make Southend a city, and I think that would be a fitting tribute. But what a terrible thing to have happened, and our thoughts and prayers are with his family.
Who is on the naughty step this week?
Well, on the naughty step this week, Lena, and it's about time, is Mateusz Morawiecki, I hope I pronounced that right, who is about to walk into a rather frosty reception from the other prime ministers and heads of state. Of course, Morawiecki is the Polish prime minister at the two-day EU Council meeting, which is starting this week, which will be Angela Merkel's last EU Council, because he is sticking two fingers up at the rule of law in Europe, as we know. And I think it's going to be some very awkward moments. I'm not quite sure what they're going to say to him, what kind of looks they're going to give him. And of course, the trouble with this is that the more that they sort of criticize and attack him, the better that plays for him back home. Because he can go back and say, no, I got a very frosty reception from the other leaders in Europe, but I'm just doing my job of representing Poland. But I think we have to understand, they have to get across to him the idea that, you know, you can't have your cake and eat it. This sounds very familiar, doesn't it, from the Brexit negotiations. The British were always told they can't have their cake and eat it. They can't have everything their own way. They can't be in the European Union, in the club, but not respect the rules of the club. And so some people now are talking about Polexit. They're saying this is rather similar to the British case. What the Polish people are complaining about is, well, the Polish Prime, not the Polish people, because I think there are many, many people in Poland who are very upset about this and are protesting against it. We must always remember that. This is by no means the whole of Poland. This is highly contested, what the Polish Prime Minister is doing. But, you know, they want things their way and they play that nationalist populist card, and it's difficult to know what to do about it. But I must say the European Parliament is very much on the front foot with this issue, and it is threatening to take the European Commission to court for not taking action against Poland to penalise Poland for breaches in the rule of law. And what the European Parliament, David Sassoli, the President of the European Parliament, is saying is there have been clear breaches of the European rule of law, and therefore there should be a penalty against Poland. The European Commission needs to take action. And if the European Commission doesn't take action on behalf of European citizens, then the European Parliament, on behalf of European citizens, will sue the European Commission. And I think that's another very good example of the European Parliament banging the drum for a Europe of values and representing European citizens well. So thank you to David Sassoli.
Who is, in your eyes, the star of the week?
We have a star of the week this week who is, I would say, a superstar of the week. I mean, all our stars are superstars, really. But I mean, this one is really setting a very, very high bar because it's Navalny in Russia, who has just been awarded by the European Parliament the Sakharov Human Rights Prize. And the Sakharov Human Rights Prize is the highest human rights award that is made in Europe, and it's gone to Navalny. And just remember, you know, he's the man who was poisoned by the Putin regime, and then he was flown to Germany and they saved his life, and then he voluntarily went back to Russia, was immediately arrested and put in prison and put on a hunger strike. And he sort of single-handedly, he's exposed so much of the corruption of the Russian regime. And so I think it's fantastic that the European Parliament have given him this prize. I was trying to find out what sort of condition his health is in at the moment. I think it's stabilized slightly better and so on. And of course, I mean, it won't matter to Navalny too much that he's been given the Sakharov Prize. You know, the thing about awards and prizes, they give you a prize and award, but what you really want is not the prize and award. You want to get rid of the thing that you're campaigning to get rid of. And he wants to get rid of Putin and bring democracy to Russia. So I think Navalny will be very nonplussed by very humble about the prize. But the person who will have the biggest emotional reaction, I think, to the award of the Sakharov Prize to Navalny is going to be Putin. And he's going to be, I think, very irritated by this. And I think that shows you that these sorts of awards can have an impact, can have a diplomatic impact, and let's hope that it's a very positive one, and that somehow this plus other pressure can somehow rein in a little bit Putin's behavior. And of course, the thing about Putin is we never know what he's going to do next. So we have to change the calculus of risk for Putin. And I think the award of the prize to Navalny keeps this very much, this issue of Putin's behavior in his regime and opposition to that within Russia and outside Russia very much at the top of the agenda. So well done, Navalny, but let's remember there's a lot of work to do to keep this issue in the public spotlight.
Definitely. So what's coming up, Roger?
Well, the next major event that we have as New Europeans will be to celebrate the International Day to end impunity for crimes against journalists. Let's remember the terrible murder a couple of years ago of Daphne Caruana. Again, the European Parliament has just given the award of the Daphne Caruana Prize. Let's remember the Nobel Peace Prize this year went to journalists, and journalists are still being murdered, intimidated, murdered for the work they do. We talked about Andrei Bastunets from Belarus, and this is the day in the year. It's the 2nd of November. When we say crimes against journalists are crimes against all of us as citizens. If we don't have a free press, we can't speak about a free democracy. And we know that we live in a terrible world and journalists put themselves in the front line and in danger. But we must say to the institutions and the authorities, we cannot have a situation where crimes against journalists are not followed up and those people responsible brought to justice. And so this is the day to end impunity for crimes against journalists. And we will be holding a meeting at the Brussels Press Club, again with Andrei Bastunets and the Belarus Association of Journalists, putting their situation once again, quite rightly, I feel, in the spotlight.
Thank you very much for this week's Friday Casebook, and thank you for watching.
See you next week.